Hey, I'm Will. I make 3D models, and I bought a 3D printer, so let's make something! So for this first video, I wanted something that was quite easy, something I could ease myself into and just have one short video that just kind of has the whole project from start to finish. I have loads of other ideas for big projects, but I just wanted something that was easy. So what's easier than creating a Stargate, a portal that can bridge 2 points in the galaxy together? It's a piece of cake, right? Well, yeah, kind of, because I've already made one. I just wanted to test out whether my printer actually worked, and I already had this model because I was bored a while back, last year sometime, so I just made the model and decided, you know what, it'll be great if I could actually print this out. And it works. There's a few small errors, like there's a little chip there that I'm a little bit disappointed in. And there was another area over here somewhere. Don't know where it is now. There's one of these that was kind of bowed. There it is. Like, it doesn't look that great. So I want to make another one, just better. Here's the thing though, I've already created one. Like, I've already got the Pegasus gate, and I don't want to make the exact same thing again. So I want to make the Earth gate. I want to make the gate from SG1. So, how hard can it be? Well, actually, kind of easy. They're pretty much the exact same shape. There's some minor differences. The Earthgate Stargate, for example, has 38 glyphs rather than 36 that the Pegasus Stargate has. So that would require me to just reconfigure, make them a little bit bigger and re-shimmy some of the mesh. And I'd also have to actually emboss the symbols rather than have them painted on. Which is easy. I can do that in a couple of hours. And then I just print it out and assemble it, and then paint it. So I figured, you know what, this would be great for a first video. So here we go. So here I am in 3ds Max, which is the program I use to do all of my 3D modelling and stuff. And it's occurred to me that through either sheer ineptitude or... well, no, it was just ineptitude. I've somehow managed to lose the original file, which sucks. However, all is not lost, because I do still have the STL file which I used for printing out the gate that I've already made. Unfortunately, this has happened. Why do STL files do this? It seems to have wanted to triangulate every single polygon and invert some things? What, look at that, it's just a mess. Basically, I've now got to go through all of this and retopologize it to make it all nice and clean so that I can actually start work on it properly. Which is a pain in the arse, but hey ho, here we go. And there we are, one Milky Way Stargate, all ready to be printed. It actually wasn't that difficult. I was expecting it to be, a little bit more tedious, but no, it was actually really easy to do that. I don't really know what you guys want. Do you want to watch a time-lapse of me creating this kind of stuff? Or is that kind of stuff really boring? For this project, it was super simple for me to do it, and it was just tedious work, so I didn't bother to time-lapse it. But if that's something that you guys want in the future, then yeah, let me know, and I'll see what I can do. As it is, I'm going to send this over to the printer and get it printed. Well, fudge. Looks like I'm going to have to go back into Max and change some settings. Otherwise, I'm just going to get this as a print. What glyph is that even supposed to be? That's better. You can actually see what these glyphs are now. Where's the Earthgate? There it is. God, such a cool design. Everybody immediately knows what that symbol is. Even with, 4 lines. Everybody can see what that is. So the settings for this, obviously I have the Prusa i3 Mark III printer. I'm going with a 0.1mm detail layer height, because honestly, I could drop it down to 0.05, but there is zero noticeable difference. Absolutely zero. And it takes 3 times as long or something. It's ridiculous at how much longer it takes for nothing. So it's at 0.1mm. 0.10mm. Fill density 20%, and a brim so it stops it from warping when it's being printed. Fairly simple, fairly standard, should take about 3 hours. Also, this is at size 250%, because way back last year when I actually made the model, I made it at a scale that is fine for gaming, not so fine for printing. And through doing that, I've ended up just scaling it up in the slicer, because it's so much easier than having to scale it up in max and then export it and make sure that everything else is also scaled up. It's 250%, apply that to all of the meshes, and it just works. I've got the download links down below in the description if you want to print it out yourself. That's why I'm saying all of these details. If you have a printer, if you want to print it out for yourself, go ahead. One minor thing before I actually start printing out. I mentioned a second ago that I was using PETG plastic rather than something like PLA. That's because this isn't actually the first Stargate that I've ever made. This Stargate right here was made using PETG. And that's because before this Stargate was completed, I had originally printed out the whole ring in PLA. And it worked, it was really nice. However, it was also during that time in which we had the hottest heat waves that the UK has seen for like 40, 50 years or something. And it melted as it was stood on its little stand that I have here. I left it alone for a little while, and I came back and it had just drooped and warped. In fact, you can kind of see on here, I've marked it out, there are warpings, and this is more evident. Let's see if I can focus it. So you can kind of see there, it is bowed. And that's not ideal. Since I'm printing out these two halves, they have to fit together. And so if there is a bow, then it's not going to work. Oh, another reason that I'll be using PETG rather than PLA is PETG is just stronger. It's just stronger than PLA, it has a higher melting point, and it's just sturdier. There's really no other reason. It's a little bit more expensive, but, it's just better. And here it is, finally printed. It ended up taking about 5-6 hours, I think, in total. And to be honest, I did try to record it as a time-lapse. But it ended up kind of looking a bit like this. Okay, that's not so bad. Whoa! Oh no. What? How? Oh, how am I going to use this? So yeah, I'm not going to subject you all to watching through all of that. This is actually the second time that I've printed this out. The first time, it's a minor difference, but it bugged me so much. So here is the first version that I printed out. And it doesn't look too bad, but for one major detail. For some reason, I don't know why, but the glyph in this little box here did not print. And I can't explain it. It just didn't print. And that's really, really annoying, because that's the Earth glyph. That's the one that's going to be right at the top. And so that's going to be one of the main focus points. And it just irked me so much that I ended up having to print out a second version. There's actually a really cool thing that the slicer does, which I did not realise until I was printing this out. You can actually set which part of the model has less detail and which part has more. So in the end, I actually managed to get this as a 0.05mm print, but with the bottom half being like 0.1. So the part that's not detailed printed out really quickly, and the top that is detailed printed out slowly, averaging about 5 hours. Shut up, bird! So it occurred to me that I didn't actually explain why I was printing out these... Ooh, that's a bit squeaky. why I was printing these out in the way that I am, why they're in halves like this. Basically, the reason for that is the way that the printer works. It's printed out in layers, but I have this bed that I have. It's bumped. It's got like little, I don't even know how to describe it, like a knobbly, bumpy surface, which is great for printing because the plastic grips a lot better to the surface. Unfortunately, that does mean that the bottom of the print is typically kind of also bumpy. I don't want the detail on this to be bumpy. So if I slice through the print, right down the centre, and then print out both sides facing upwards, that way I get the really nice detail on both sides. And all I have to do is, super glue the two together. Also, I just realised I didn't actually explain what this white stuff on my print bed was. It's actually glue stick. It's called Cause, and it's basically a Pritt stick that I just put on and the plastic sticks to it. And it's just really nice. It works really well. Just to make certain that the print sticks to the bed, and then when it finally dries, or when it's finished, I can just peel it off. And it's beautiful. It works a treat. But this is actually, I've now printed out both sides, because I also have the back, which is really quite nice. So the idea is that I can now super glue these together, and I will have the complete Stargate. Now, there is still more to do with this project. If you actually look at a Stargate, I'll use this one for example, you'll notice that they have these chevrons. There are 9 of them on each side, meaning 18 in total. And I do still have a couple spare from my last print. But they are... I don't have enough. I need to print out, like, 16 more of these, and they take about an hour each. So that's just going to be a pain in the arse to have to wait for those. So, here we go. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18! So now I have my little chevron, but it's missing one key part that really finishes this entire thing off. The one part that goes into the centre. Now the first method I thought of was to create one of these. It's just a little print. It's nothing complex, but it's using the filament of glow in the dark, which actually does have quite a cool effect. If only a little effect. Because that's the problem with this. Because it's so tiny, you can't really tell, honestly. If it's a pitch black room, and it's had time to charge up in the sunlight, or in just a light, then yes, you can see it, but it's not very clear. And I wish it was clearer, but it's just not. The other problem with this filament is that the actual colour of it in light is kind of a murky yellow clear colour. It's not nice, and when socketed, it looks alright, but it just doesn't look as good as I had hoped. Now I can paint it, admittedly, and that would look fine. But it would just look fine. And I don't want this to just look fine, I want this to look awesome. So, there is another way that I've thought to create this centre chevron piece. A better way. Well, maybe not better. It looks better, but the method at which you have to go through in order to actually get it is just a pain in the arse. That's a lot of this build, come to think of it. Everything that I've had to do has just been a pain. The way that I like to do it is through using this stuff. Epoxy resin. A little bit of this, and a couple of drops of this hardener. It's brilliant. It makes a massive mess, and it is the worst smell in the world. It is so pungent. But you pour that into a little mould, you wait 24 hours, and it comes out with a perfectly crystal clear glass-like effect. And what's even cooler about that is that you can then mix in, as it's curing, little particles, little dust or pigments, or even drops of dyes. You can make it any colour you want, and it's brilliant. The problem with that is that you need a mould. And to get the mould of, the perfect chevron, the easiest way that I could think to do it was to print one. Now, this, in theory, is a brilliant idea. And I did my research. I checked to see whether the resin, epoxy resin, would actually, bind to the plastic. And it doesn't. They don't actually bond, which is really, really nice. If I were to pour that into a bowl, let it cure, I could then peel away the plastic, and it would be a perfect shape. However, the problem that I've encountered, and I printed off 5 of these in my original testing. The problem that I encountered is that resin is basically like fiberglass. It is one of the most delicate substances that you can be working with in this kind of a project. One little point of pressure in the wrong place, and the entire thing will shatter into a million pieces. Maybe not a million pieces, but it will crack. Which is not ideal. Especially when your mould is made out of the world's hardest plastic. I have tried everything that I can think of to wear this down. This stuff does not sand very well. I was sanding this for about 20 minutes without even a scratch. I've tried warming it up with the heat gun, because, my previous Stargate melted in the sunlight. Nope, didn't work. I've tried using knives to cut it out. That just shatters the resin. I swear, this stuff is impossible to use as a mould when it's enclosed like this. But there is a solution to this. By not using PLA. Now, it's not designed for this. In fact, it's designed to be used as supports. And that is this. The Primer Filament PVA. This stuff should never be used in an actual print. Because this stuff has a unique property of it being water soluble, which means it dissolves in water, which is awful for general prints, but brilliant if you want to create a mould for something that does not dissolve in water. So, I need to print out 18 of these using this stuff and then pour in the resin. But what colour will I make the resin? Well, I bought this. And I'm not certain if it's the exact same colour or if it's going to be metallic enough, but I think this orange might just do the trick. So I have here 20 of the little moulds I've created out of the water-soluble material. And it's always good practice to make more than you actually need, because more often than not, at least one of them, will fail. Especially with this kind of material. It's a very sticky kind of substance when it's going through the printer, and it kind of goops everywhere. I've tried my best to clean them out, but I couldn't get it all out. There are still some fibres deep inside that I'm hoping will not matter, but the odds are that at least 2 of these will fail. And that's going to suck, so I'm just going to hope that these will work, especially since it's such... I have to wait 24 hours for the actual resin to set before I can even test to see whether they're correct or not. So we'll just have to wait and see. Now I've got my resin here, and I've got my hardener, and I've also got my pigment here. And I think that's all I need. As well as a beaker and little lollipop stick. Also gloves. This stuff is... it's kind of toxic. In fact... ooh, that's such a horrible sound. It says there, danger. there's quite a lot of danger things on this. So make sure that you're well protected. And right. Oh, I also need this little thing. So this will allow me to measure out exactly what I need. And I don't want to use too much. I also can't remember exactly how much catalyst I require. So it is 0.2 milliliters of hardener, which is this stuff, for every 20 milliliters of this. So let's pour a bit. I don't actually want to use 20 milliliters. In fact, I'll probably use 5. 5 should be okay. And in it goes. Alright. Now I need about 0.5... No, even less than that. So I need a tiny, tiny amount of hardener. Just a couple of drops. There we go. I think that should actually be enough. Right. Now, use some of this pigmented powder. Which I probably should have opened earlier, because trying to open this stuff with gloves on is not great. Okay. I should express at this point that I'm not an expert. Please do not follow this as advice. I have no idea what I'm doing. This is like the second or third time I've ever used resin. I know I'm doing something wrong, but I'm just learning, you know? So, if I just scoop this all up, I'm hoping this is enough. Honestly, I have no idea. It's actually quite a nice colour. It's kind of like a golden browny orange. Alright, perfect. Now, I'm going to suck up as much of this as I possibly can. There we go. Hopefully that's enough. And now begin to pour it in. I think just a couple of drops. Ooh, please don't overflow. A couple of drops on each should be enough. And here's the thing, I have to be quite quick with this as well. The resin sets very quickly. Within about 2 or 3 minutes, it becomes almost impossible to then use. So I'm just trying to fill as much as I can, as quickly as I can, and then I'll top up once I've done them all. And now to wait for 24 hours. And hopefully there have been no air pockets trapped inside, because that would suck. In fact, what might be a good idea is if I get some kind of needle and just mix it around inside. I don't have one on hand though. See, that would have been good forward planning. So now that I've got this ready, I can just put that to the side and that can be resting on its own for the next 24 hours. So I can now begin to work on the next part, which is the inside. So you'll see here that the resin I've used here has like this really cool ripple effect. That was actually completely by accident. I did not know that was going to happen. And I believe the reason for that was that the two powders here separated as the resin was hardening. So that's what I'm going to do. Unfortunately, the material I've used for this ring is the same as the one that I've used for the chevrons. And when I took it out of the printer, it seemed to deform itself, which is rather unfortunate. I don't know that this is actually a circle anymore, which is really sucky. I think it might still work though. If I take this and just fit it over the top, it is still the same shape, and I'm hoping that once the resin goes in and fills out, then it'll be putting pressure onto all sides equally and will hopefully mean that the end result is still a circle. If not, I'll just have to do it again. So, same method as before, except I'm going to use a lot more this time. I'm going to have 20 milliliters. Yeah, that's about 20 milliliters. Here's a top tip for you, by the way. When you come to clear this stuff up, resin does not mix well with water at all. It just becomes this big gloopy mess. What you should use is this, acetone. Acetone dissolves the resin like it just eats it. It's great. So make sure you have some acetone on hand. So I need 0.2 milliliters now. Perfect. Put that in there. Right. And let's start scooping in some of this powder. So I'll be linking all of the stuff that I've used down in the description below, by the way. So you can buy this for yourself. Alright, so have a great big heap full of that. Perfect. Alright, and I've got this. I think this is the pearlescent blue. Put that in. Finally, if you know of a better way to mix all of this stuff, then please do let me know, because as I mentioned before, I'm learning. I'm learning as I'm doing this. And this stuff is my favourite. It's glow in the dark. In fact, I want about 2 heapfuls of this. There we go. Wunderbar. Now, mix all of this up. There may actually be a little bit too much powder in here. When you're mixing up this much, the key is to not have any bubbles, which is actually quite difficult. So you want to have nice smooth stirs. And also don't take too long with it. Like I said, the longer you take, the more it sets and the gloopier it becomes until it becomes unworkable. I think that's about ready. So we've got this really nice... Ooh, it's a very nice colour. And here we go. Here we pour. Now the reason I'm putting it onto acrylic is because the resin does not bind to acrylic at all. So I can just peel it off when it's finished. Alright. Let's try and get a little bit more in there. Obviously, the more you put in, the thicker the end result will be, and the less glass-like it becomes. Right. Just move it around a little bit so it just make sure there's covering all of the edges. There we go. Okay, and now I can leave that for the next 24 hours. 24 hours later. Nope. That's still a bit sticky. Yeah. Another 24 hours later. Okay, so it's been quite a bit longer than I expected in order for this to solidify. I don't know why. Last time I swear it only took 24 hours, but this time it was still a bit icky, like goopy. I didn't want to risk it. I'm sure it probably would have been fine, but honestly, I'd rather it just be rock solid before I actually touch it. So, I have here this big beaker of water. And in theory, if I just drop these in, the plastic around it should dissolve, leaving behind a beautiful piece of resin. Oh, there's a few that are actually stuck to the desk because of the leakages. I'll clean that up later. And 2 more. There they go. Right. Now for the big one. In theory, just move this out of the way, I should be able to just pop this off. Oh, yes. Look at that. This little piece here, I'm Not really sure what I'm going to do about that. Might just use that as a counterweight. Actually, that's a pretty good idea. Of course it doesn't. Of course, the water doesn't quite go up to it. Well, that's unfortunate. How the hell am I going to do this? See, it'll be times like this when I really should have gotten a big bowl or something. That would have been a good idea. Okay, I just have here a clean pot from the curry house. Last time I had a curry. There we go. Perfect. All I really want is for a little piece to dissolve, and then I'll be able to peel off the rest. And that's it. I now have to sit and wait more. You know, it really would have been a good idea if I had actually started this process at the start of the project, so that I could be doing other things while I'm waiting. This is not something that I had thought of. Yet another 24 hours later. Okay, finally, I think this is done. Ooh. Oh, well that's not. Ooh. I think I might have to remake this. That's, balls. Right, let that be a lesson to you. Don't put this in water and then let it bend like that. Oh, that sucks. That's been like 3 days' work. Right, well that's great. Alright, well let's see if these came out alright. Oof. It's like a gooey. Right, but in theory, I should be able to just peel it out. Ah, beautiful. It's like a newborn baby resin chunk. There we go. Give it a quick swill. Yeah. Alright, there's one. There's 17 more of these in here now. Ugh. This water is disgusting. So here's just a little close-up of one of them. And in theory, it should... Oh, yes! Pop straight in. Now I do need to do a little bit of sanding. It's a little bit of a lip just there. I'm going to sand that down. But otherwise, that's pretty much perfect. And second attempt. Another 24 or even 48 hours later. Okay, finally, this should be set. And this should actually be the one. It's actually interesting at how different this and this one are. There is a different colour. I definitely used more powder in this than I should have done. Also, unfortunately, when I was trying to bend this back into shape, it snapped. Interestingly, though, if I fit these pieces back together, they are actually straight. Which is making me think that maybe if I had just left it alone, it would have gone back into its original form. I don't know. It's interesting, but... yeah. Okay, so let's take this off. Moment of truth. Ooh, here it comes. Oh, beautiful. It's actually really nice. It's quite a nice ripple effect in that as well. You probably can't see it very well on the camera, but when it reflects light, it's like it's got craters inside. It's completely smooth, but the light reflects and refracts off of the different colours. It's really cool. Okay, so the first thing I need to do now, immediately, is sand off this excess around the outside. So I've got my, my sanding pad here. And yeah, basically it's just this until there's nothing left. Okay, so I've gone around the outside and just trimmed it all off. Now, this is where the real danger comes in though. Because if I show you this one, I actually like that colour more for the Atlantis gate. I think this colour is actually really nice for the Earth gate. Even unintentionally, the colour that I've got here is perfect. But you'll notice that just there, it's a little tiny crack, a slither that's been taken out. That's because that was caused when I was trying to take off this ring, which is why I decided, this time around to do the water-soluble material. But that's not structurally sound, and I couldn't get the perfect ring with that. So now I have to try and be very, very careful and cut this away without damaging any of the resin. And that's really, really difficult. Once I've gotten a little tiny piece out, the rest should be easy. I just need to fold it, or unravel it, basically. Aha! Aha! Here we go! I'm just about to see like a little crack there starting to form. Now I just need to keep that. Oh, yes! Oh, yes! Look at that! That, I hope, let's test it. This should, oh, it's perfect. That is a perfect fit. Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, well that means that I now have all of the pieces required. There is one more tiny thing. In waiting for this to set, I was doing some little research. Turns out, I was wrong. I am really wrong, actually. There's a little bit of confusion in the images that I've seen, but it seems as though the Atlantis gates sometimes have glowing chevrons on both sides. The space gates especially have that. I'm not entirely certain if the actual Atlantis gate has chevrons on both sides. The Earth gate, though, definitely, at least in the film, the original film, only has these chevrons on the front. On the back, they're filled in. Which is really interesting. And also means that I've printed out 20 of these, and I only need 9. Which is actually good, because as it turns out, some of them didn't come out so well. This one, for example, really did not come out very well at all. You can see how the bottom of it just kind of shattered. Yeah, that one's not very nice. There's a few others, like this one, where it looks okay, but then the top is just all a mangled mess. And the back, ooh, the back is awful. So this basically means that now I can pick and choose which ones I want. Which is fantastic, because now I can choose the 9 of the best. So there's 3, 4, 5, 6. Oops. 7, 8, 9. And there they are. Okay. I may have gone a little bit overboard with these. Some of them I wasn't quite happy with. Some of them are actually pretty good. But some of them kind of have a droopy bit that I wasn't satisfied with. So I've printed out, how many up to here? This is 10. Printed out all of these guys. And in theory, this should be all that I need. Especially since they take like an hour each to print out. So I've got my 18 there, which is fine, which is perfect. But then I went overboard and printed out all of those. And I don't know why. So let's just do a quick check. Everything that you need to make a Stargate. The actual event horizon. A back for the Stargate. A front for the Stargate. 18 chevrons. 9 inner resin chevrons. 9 plastic silver chevrons, just to go into the back. And finally, the final piece. The base for the Stargate to stand in. 10 points, by the way, to anybody who can actually translate what that says. And another 10 points if you can translate what that one says. So now that I have all of these pieces, the only step left to do is to paint it. Which is why I have here my my grey matte primer. I'm just going to spray paint the big pieces, things like this, and the 2 Stargate parts and the chevrons. Don't think I'll bother with the little ones. I can just paint them directly. And then I'll assemble it and paint it. Now, for the Atlantis Gate, I used a mixture of Lead Belcher and Ironbreaker from the Citadel paint sets. And it actually turned out really nicely. However, if anybody's ever done any comparisons between the 2 gates, they'll notice that the Earth Gate is actually darker. And unfortunately for me, Citadel or Games Workshop don't make any darker silver greys than Lead Belcher. Which sucks. However, they're not the only company that makes paints. I have here some Valio paints. I've got some nice steel there that I don't think will come in that useful. Silver, again, it's a bit bright. But I've also got gunmetal. And I'm hoping the gunmetal is darker. It should be, but I haven't actually tested it yet. Okay, so I've gone through and I've used my primer on all these large pieces. I decided in the end that I was going to do these little ones, just because I was already doing the chevrons, and I was like, well, why not? It's a couple of sprays and they're done. And you can really see how much of a difference spraying it grey actually makes. It really pulls it together. It makes it look so much more real. And that's not even with the gunmetal applied yet. I still need to do that, and it's going to look so much better after that. Now, one thing you'll notice about 3D printers, they kind of leave behind a fiberistic, well, fibers. The primer really highlights this issue. Basically, I just need to go through, and before I can actually start painting properly, I need to go through and just pluck out all of these fibers. Just make it really nice and clean. There's a couple of rough edges as well that I need to sand down there. So yeah, I'm just going to go through, clean all that up, and then I can actually start the real painting. The Stargate is very nearly done. It's all painted, it just needs the big splashy thing in the very center. So, yeah, it's nearly done. It looks so cool now. I'm actually super pleased with how this came out. I kind of wish that I'd recorded the painting of it, but I went around to a mate's house and did it there, and it wasn't interesting, really. It was about 4 hours of me just putting on grey. So if I have these two side by side, there is a colour difference, which is something that I was kind of worried about, because I didn't want the 2 gates to be the same colour. And I mean in the metal, not just in the blue. Obviously that's different. So with the Pegasus Gate, I just used lead belcher with a little bit of Ironbreaker just to highlight a little bits and pieces, and then I covered the whole thing in some Nuln Oil. And that looks really cool. It's got this weird, like, I don't even know how you would describe it. It's got like an orangey tint to it. Like a bronzy finish. Whereas the Earthgate, it's very steel, it's very cold, very... It is darker. Which is true to the series. The Earthgate is slightly blue, and the Atlantis Gate has like a tarnished bronze. Now, I was going to use the gunmetal Valio paint. I had all the intentions to use it, but I didn't. Because I made a colossal blunder. Well, okay, not necessarily a colossal blunder. The Valio paint is for an airbrush. And I have an airbrush. I've never used it. I need to learn how to use it first. But I thought it would be fine to just transfer this straight onto the model. It's not. The Valio paints are very watery. Enough so that by spreading it on, you actually couldn't tell that there was actually anything on there. So I had to resort back to lead belcher. But in order to make it a different colour, I mixed it with a little bit of blue, the Fang, with the Citadel paints. And that came out really, really nicely. Way nicer than I expected it would be. It was only a little bit of blue, and a lot of steel, a lot of lead belcher, a lot of metal. But it made such a difference between the two colours. And also you'll notice that I went into each of these lines and used a little bit of Troll Slayer Orange. Which, fortunately, this was completely accidental. It is the exact same colour as the chevrons. So I'm super pleased with that. And then finally, I've got these two. Now this, I need to go back and finish this up. I was running out of time at my mate's house and I just kind of slapped it all on. I definitely do need to spend some more time tidying this up. But these are the two gates. Now, one last thing that I need to do. Just move this off to the side. I left it underneath here so that it wouldn't deform. Because apparently, previously I had left it like that for a day. And when I came back it had kind of warped. So, stuck it underneath the mat where there's plenty of weight being applied to it. It went back to its default position. So, now I just need to figure out a way to fit this in. It should fit in nice and snug. With a little bit of force, I'm hoping. Maybe I need to sand down a little bit? Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go and sand down just a little bit to get rid of all of the rough edges. And then I'm just going to put some super glue on the inside and slot it in. And hopefully that should be perfect. Okay, so I've been as careful as I possibly can not to rub away too much. Now I just need to go around the inside with some of this super glue. Industrial grade super glue. Alright, that's that. And now, the moment of truth. Can I get this to stay in there? Yeah. Come on. A little bit. Oh no, no, it's coming at the other side. Come on, just gotta pop it in. Yes, 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 yes! Is this gonna actually be a perfect fit the whole way around? Oh, I'm so happy with this. Yes! Oh, there's a little bit... My fingers keep getting stuck. I'm gonna have to touch that up with some paint. Fingers are tearing off the paint with the super glue. Alright, I think that's about as good as I'm gonna get it. No, I need to push this further down. No, the super glue is set. It's so fast setting. Alright, pull it back up a little bit. I need some kind of like little hammer. Alright. Alright. And I think that's that. Just gonna quickly get some of this iron lead belcher, whatever it's called. Just little dots. There we go. Perfectamundo. C'est magnifique. Thank you very much for watching this video. It took considerably longer than I first expected, but you know what? I loved every moment of it. So, if you enjoyed watching this video, let me know, I'll make more. I can't wait to start more projects. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.